The kitchen was quiet except for the steady hum of the refrigerator and the faint trickle of water in the sink. Evelyn Hart, sleeves rolled up, was rinsing a stack of plates when she heard words that nearly made her drop the porcelain. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend." The dish slipped in her soapy hands, wobbling dangerously before she caught it. She turned slowly, wide-eyed, droplets still clinging to her skin. "I'm sorry. What did you just say?" Standing across from her, tall and unyielding in a perfectly tailored suit, was Adrian Stone. His posture was sharp, his expression unreadable. The early morning sunlight spilled across the room, painting the edges of his figure in gold. But none of that warmth reached his face. "You heard me," he replied, in a voice as calm and businesslike as if he were dictating numbers at a board meeting. "1 month. A professional arrangement. You'll act as if you're my partner. I'll compensate you." Evelyn blinked at him, incredulous. She dried her damp fingers with the towel on the counter. "Mr. Stone, I cook your meals. I make sure your son gets to school on time. I'm your housekeeper, not—" She gestured vaguely. "Whatever this is, you're discreet, reliable, intelligent, and most importantly, trustworthy. Adrian Cutting, that's what I need, and you're already a presence in my son's life." Her breath caught at the mention of the little boy, Oliver, sweet, thoughtful Oliver, who always brought her crayon drawings of trees and dragons, who asked her quiet questions about books she read him at night. She had grown attached to him, faster than she'd ever expected, and maybe, she realized, he had to. But why, she asked, softer now, why do you even need a fake relationship? Adrian's jaw tightened. "There's a major event coming. Executives, board members, investors. Some of them hold traditional values. They don't believe a man without a partner is fit to run a company branded around family ideals. If I show up alone again, they'll push harder to replace me. This buys me time." "You're a widower," Evelyn said gently. "To them, that means vulnerable." He replied flatly, "I've already declined the introductions arranged by shareholders. If I refuse again, it will trigger political fallout I can't afford." The towel in her hands was clenched tightly against her chest as she tried to process his request. "So you think parading me around on your arm is going to fix that?" "I don't parade," Adrian answered coldly, then, more measured, "All I ask is that you accompany me, smile, make polite conversation, nothing more. You'll be paid $50,000. $50,000. Evelyn's throat tightened. That was enough to cover her younger brother Caleb's surgery, the one the hospitals kept calling about. Enough to give him a chance at life. She swallowed hard. "I don't belong in your world. Perhaps that's why they'll believe it." Adrian murmured. The air was heavy. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked, and Evelyn's head spun. She whispered, "I need time to think." Adrian inclined his head. "You have until tomorrow." That night, in the tiny apartment she shared with Caleb, Evelyn sat hunched at her desk. Papers and overdue bills sprawled around her. In her lap lay a worn folder of medical records, her brother's diagnosis scrawled in cold ink. 16 years old, congenital heart defect, no insurance. Her fingers trembled as she reread the proposal in her mind. 1 month, pretend, no intimacy, no real strings, just an act. But could she keep her emotions out of something that brushed so close to her heart? Her thoughts flickered back to Oliver, his soft curls, his questions about bedtime stories, the way he leaned against her shoulder as he drifted off to sleep. Then to Adrian, cold, intimidating. Yet earlier that day there had been a note in his voice. Hesitation, humanity. Before dawn broke, she walked into the Stone Estate kitchen. Adrian was already there, composed as ever with a mug of coffee in hand. "I'll do it," she said firmly. He looked up, an eyebrow raised. "The girlfriend thing," she clarified. 1 month. But I want it in writing. Boundaries, payment, duration, of course. Adrian said smoothly, "And one more thing. Yes, I'm not changing who I am. No red lipstick, no forced flirting, and I will not laugh at unfunny jokes just to flatter you." Something like a suppressed chuckle escaped him. "Noted." Evelyn folded her arms. "This is just a role, Mr. Stone." His gaze lingered on hers for a moment too long. Naturally, they shook hands, a simple gesture, yet neither of them realized how many lines that handshake would blur, or how much pretending would soon begin to feel dangerously real. Stood in front of a 3-paneled mirror, shifting uneasily as the boutique tailor knelt to adjust the hem of her gown. "This fabric drapes beautifully," the stylist murmured. "Soft ivory, elegant, understated." Evelyn smoothed her palms over the dress again, feeling like she was staring at a stranger in the reflection. Her hair, usually kept loose, was pinned into a neat chignon. The gown hugged her modestly, flaring slightly at the waist. She looked older, sharper, like someone who belonged in a world she had no business stepping into. "Is this really necessary?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. Adrian sat nearby, arms crossed, his face unreadable. "The event is formal. You need to look the part." She turned back to the mirror, her voice laced with dry humor. "Do I pass as a CEO's girlfriend?" Now, for once, his reply wasn't clipped. It was quieter, almost thoughtful. "You always did. This is just polishing." The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and whispered wealth. Crystal glasses clinked while violins painted the air with soft music. Evelyn walked beside Adrian through the grand entrance, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Every head turned as they entered, and though her heart thundered, she lifted her chin and forced a composed smile. "You're doing fine," Adrian murmured, not breaking his stride. She clung to that reassurance as they moved deeper into the crowd of executives and shareholders. Champagne flowed, conversation swirled around them. Evelyn reminded herself, "Breathe, smile, play the part, be yourself." Adrian added quietly, "The calm, kind version. That's the one they'll trust." Oddly, his words steadied her. More than the hours she had spent practicing in borrowed heels, a silver-haired man stepped forward, extending his hand. "Miss Hart, is it?" Adrian has been rather discreet. "How did you two meet?" Evelyn's smile didn't falter. "At his home. I was working there. One of those unexpected turns life throws at you." Laughter rippled through the group. A woman in a silk gown tilted her head. "So, you weren't born into this world?" "Not even close," Evelyn replied, with grace. "Though I will say knowing how to scrub a kitchen comes in handy before hosting a dinner party." Adrian nearly choked on his champagne, disguising it with a cough. Evelyn shot him a mischievous glance. "And what do you do, Miss Hart?" Another asked. "I'd like to return to teaching art and literature, but right now, I'm focused on what matters most. Family, health, people." A hush of respect lingered, then Adrian's voice, softer, carried from just behind her. "She's more qualified than most." Evelyn turned slightly, meeting his eyes. Around them, conversation buzzed on, but he didn't look away. Later that evening, needing air, Evelyn slipped out onto the balcony. The city stretched far below cold steel towers and endless lights. She leaned against the railing, the night breeze tugging gently at her hair. A small hand tugged at hers. She gasped, looking down. "Oliver, what are you doing here?" The boy grinned, clutching a paper crane. "I made this for you. Daddy told the guard to bring me up." Evelyn looked back toward the ballroom. Through the glass doors, she spotted Adrian standing inside, one hand in his pocket, watching them with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. Oliver leaned close. "Are you going to stay?" She smiled tenderly. "For tonight?" "Yes." "No." He said seriously. "I mean, always. Are you going to be my mom now?" Her breath caught. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Before she could answer, Adrian stepped outside. "Oliver," he said gently. "Time to go." The boy hugged her tightly before running to his father's side. Adrian said nothing, only watched her in silence. And for the first time, Evelyn saw something fragile in him, a flicker of something breaking through all that steel. The next gala was even grander, held in an old museum with ivy-covered walls and glass ceilings. Diamonds glittered as casually as water. Guests floated from table to table, dropping five-figure donations between sips of champagne. Evelyn wore a navy dress that swept the floor, her blonde hair curled into soft waves. Adrian leaned close as he handed her a glass of pale wine. "You don't need to say much tonight. Just stand beside me, smile, and please, avoid red wine." "So," she teased, "don't trip, don't talk too much, and don't stain the dress." "Got it." He blinked at her tone, caught off guard. "I didn't mean to sound cold." "But you did," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the glass. Before he could respond, a familiar voice rang out. "Well, if it isn't Evelyn Hart." She turned, startled, then broke into a warm smile. "Daniel." Adrian stiffened as she stepped forward to hug the newcomer. Daniel looked like someone plucked from Evelyn's past life, athletic, confident, effortlessly charming. "It's been years," he said. "What are you doing here? Don't tell me you actually run in these circles now." She laughed, the kind of laugh Adrian had rarely heard from her, light, unguarded. Not really. Just here as a plus one. Daniel barely acknowledged Adrian, his attention fixed on Evelyn. They slipped easily into conversation. Old professors, mutual friends, a beloved bookstore long gone. Evelyn touched his arm once as she laughed. Without thinking, Adrian's chest tightened as he watched from the distance, a strange tension knotting in him. Later, he found himself at the bar, swirling his drink, jaw tense. "Hey," Evelyn said gently as she approached. "I was looking for you. You seem occupied." Adrian replied, eyes still on his glass. "That was Daniel, an old friend," she explained, sensing his edge. "We haven't spoken in years, clearly," he muttered. "You just seem eager to make up for lost time." Her brows knit. "Are you upset?" "Of course not. Why would I be?" His words were clipped, but his grip on the glass betrayed him. "I thought this was supposed to be pretend." "It is," she whispered. "Then maybe you should remember that." His voice snapped like a whip. The words stung. Evelyn stepped back, wounded. "I was only being polite." "Then be polite with someone else's reputation," he bit out, turning away. She didn't follow Dot in the days that followed. Adrian grew distant. He left early, returned late, spoke only when necessary. Evelyn moved through the house like a shadow, keeping to her chores, her heart aching. But Oliver noticed. "Daddy's grumpy," he whispered one night as Evelyn tucked him in with a story. "Did he break something?" She brushed back his hair, smiling sadly. "Maybe just his brain." Her laugh was soft, but her chest hurt. One night, unable to sleep, Evelyn patted down to the kitchen for tea. Instead, she sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands as quiet tears spilled out. She had never cried in that house before. "Evelyn." She looked up, startled. Adrian stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, his expression unreadable, but softer than usual. "I didn't know you were awake," she stammered, quickly wiping her cheeks. Without a word, he stepped closer and offered her a folded handkerchief, real cotton, monogrammed, still warm from his pocket. Her hands trembled as she accepted it. "I wasn't fair to you," Adrian said quietly, "at the gala." "You don't have to explain," she whispered. "I get it. This whole thing is strange." He crouched slightly, meeting her eyes. "You didn't overstep." "I did. I let something personal cloud what was supposed to be professional." She searched his face, hoping for more, but he straightened and turned away. Evelyn sat clutching the handkerchief, her tears still damp against it, realizing that what she felt was no longer something she could hide, not from him, and not from herself. Rain tapped gently against the tall windows of the stone estate, filling the quiet halls with a soothing rhythm. Evelyn sat cross-legged on the rug of the living room. A giant sketchpad spread out in front of her. Colored pencils were scattered across the floor like confetti. Across from her, Oliver leaned over his own page, tongue peeking out in concentration as he drew a lopsided tree. "That's actually pretty good," Evelyn said thoughtfully. "You gave it personality." Oliver grinned. "It's a sad tree because it's raining," she teased. "Or maybe the tree is just lonely," he answered, choosing a blue crayon. "I'll give it a friend." From the doorway, Adrian paused. He had come downstairs intending to ask about a misplaced file, but the sight rooted him in place. Evelyn's soft laughter mingled with Oliver's quiet joy. A scene so natural, it stirred something deep inside him. For the first time in years, he saw not just a house, but the outline of a home. He lingered for a moment longer, then slipped away silently. In the evenings, Evelyn began reading to Oliver before bed, not children's books, but folk tales and poems she remembered from her own childhood. Her voice was steady, soothing, and Adrian often found himself lingering in the hallway, just out of sight, listening. One night, Oliver's small voice carried through the door. "Can you stay a little after the story?" Evelyn tucked the blanket around him. "Of course. And you'll be here tomorrow, too?" Her smile was soft. "I'm not going anywhere." The words echoed in Adrian's chest long after the lights dimmed. A week later, a storm rolled in, sudden and violent. Adrian was buried in paperwork in his office when he noticed the time. Oliver should have been home. He reached for his phone to call the driver, but before he could, the front door burst open. Evelyn stumbled in, drenched from head to toe, her hair plastered against her face. She clutched Oliver tightly, the boy wrapped in her jacket. His eyes were wide but unharmed. Adrian shot to his feet. "What the hell were you thinking?" His voice cracked louder than intended. She froze in the foyer, dripping onto the hardwood floor. The roads were flooding. she said breathlessly. The driver never showed. I waited. But the school was closing. So you walked? He interrupted sharply. With my son. In a storm? He's not just your son. She snapped then. Immediately bit her lip, regret flickering across her face. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the thunder outside. Adrian's jaw tightened as he pulled off his suit jacket and stepped toward her. Without another word, he draped it across her trembling shoulders. You could have called, he said. Quieter now. His voice was tired, not angry. I tried. She murmured. The signal kept dropping. Adrian's gaze fell to Oliver, who yawned in her arms. Go get warm. I'll take him. But Evelyn shook her head. I've got him. Their eyes locked, neither moving. The storm outside raged, but inside it was eerily still. Slowly, Adrian adjusted the jacket around her shoulders, his fingers brushing against her damp skin. He reached up, tucking a stray strand of wet hair behind her ear. Evelyn's breath caught. They were close to close. Her lips parted slightly. His followed. The air shifted, heavy with something unspoken. And then, just as quickly, Adrian stepped back, retreating behind his walls. Get changed, he said softly. You'll catch cold. He turned and walked away, leaving her trembling in the foyer, unsure which part of her was more soaked, her skin or her heart. Days later, Adrian ventured into the attic, a place he rarely visited. The heater had broken, and while searching through old boxes, he stumbled across a leather-bound album tucked between stacks of forgotten books. He opened it absent-mindedly, expecting holiday decorations. Instead, he found an old photo album marked with Julia's handwriting. Inside were ribbons, ticket stubs, and photos from her school years. He froze when he reached a picture of Julia smiling in her graduation gown, arm wrapped around another girl with familiar blonde hair. Evelyn, Adrian's. Chest tightened. Why hadn't she said anything? Why hadn't Julia? That evening, he waited in the kitchen until Evelyn entered, humming softly with a pile of folded laundry in her arms. Evelyn, he said flatly. She paused, uneasy. Yes. He held up the photo. Her expression fell. The laundry slipped slightly. In her arms. Would you like to explain this? Her voice was small, hesitant. We were in the same class, friends, sort of. I didn't think it mattered. You didn't think it mattered? His voice sharpened. I wasn't hiding it, she said quickly. I just didn't know how to bring it up. Adrian's hand shook slightly as he placed the photo on the counter. What about the accident? Were you there? Her eyes widened. She hesitated, then nodded. I was walking home from work. I saw the crash. I ran to the car. Julia was still breathing. I called for help. I stayed with her until... Her voice broke. Adrian stumbled back as if struck. And you never thought I should know. I didn't want to reopen your wounds, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. I didn't want to become part of your worst memory, but you are. He snapped, his voice raw. You were there when she died, and then you walked into my home, pretending it was all coincidence. I never pretended. Evelyn's voice shook, but she held his gaze. I care about Oliver, and I care about you. Save it. Adrian cut her off, running a hand through his hair. You're here because you feel guilty. That's all this is, a performance. She flinched, pain flashing across her face. That's not true. Then what was the plan? He demanded. Get close to the widower you couldn't save. There was no plan, she pleaded. I just wanted to help. I never meant to do what? His words were like knives. Fall into my life like you belonged in it. Her lips trembled. I should have told you, she whispered. But I was afraid that once you knew, all of this would disappear. His silence was brutal. You think I stayed out of guilt? No. Her tears spilled freely now. I stayed because your son made me feel like I mattered. Because you looked at me as though I was more than my past. Because this cold house started to feel like home. Adrian clenched his jaw, refusing to look at her. I'm sorry for not telling you. I'm sorry for caring too much. But I won't stay where I'm not wanted. She set the laundry down, turned toward the door. Rain poured outside, steady and cold. Oliver's asleep, she said softly. Tell him I didn't say goodbye because I knew I couldn't. And then she was gone. Adrian didn't move. Didn't call after her. He stood frozen in the silence, realizing that for the first time in years, he wasn't mourning Julia anymore. He was mourning someone who was still alive, someone who had just walked out of his life. The house felt unbearably quiet. It had been only 3 days since Evelyn left, but to Adrian it felt like months. The estate's grand halls, Once filled with her quiet humming and Oliver's laughter, now echoed with emptiness, Adrian wandered, like a ghost, his footsteps heavy, pausing often outside his son's room where soft music played. Oliver rarely asked where Evelyn had gone, but the boy's drawings told the truth. Each morning, Adrian found new sketches taped to the fridge, three-stick figures in front of a house. One of them always a woman with long yellow hair, Evelyn. Adrian had whispered the first time he saw it. Oliver didn't speak her name, but his heart refused to let her go. That afternoon, Adrian forced himself into his office. It was time to clear away the past, to finally let go of Julia's things that still haunted every corner. The dry bouquet from their anniversary, the perfume bottle left untouched, the framed photo on the shelf. He reached for it, hesitating only briefly before lifting it down. As he did, an envelope slipped free, wedged behind the frame, cream-colored, aged with time. His name written on the front. His pulse quickened, hands trembling. He opened it. Inside was a letter in Julia's handwriting. My love, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I never wanted to leave you with more pain. But if you've made it this far, I'm proud of you. There's something I never told you. Do you remember the girl with the yellow umbrella during our senior year, the one who helped me when I twisted my ankle in the rain? That was Evelyn Hart. She was kind, quiet, with a light that felt safe. I only spoke to her a few times, but she stuck with me. If your path crosses hers again and she still carries that light, don't push her away because of me. I don't want to be the reason you stay alone. Let yourself love again. If that person is Evelyn, hold on to her. You'll know why. Adrian stared at the letter until the words blurred. His chest ached, the dam of grief breaking wide open. For the first time in years, he wept not just for Julia, but for the realization that she had seen what he hadn't. His heart wasn't broken beyond repair. It had only been waiting for someone to remind him how to use it again, and that someone was Evelyn. The very next morning, Adrian entered the kitchen where Oliver sat with his cereal and crayons. The boy looked up, eyes wide and searching. "Daddy," he asked softly, "are you sad?" Adrian knelt beside him, his throat thick. "Yeah, buddy, I think I am." Oliver held up his newest drawing. This time, it showed only the figures, him and Evelyn holding hands. Adrian stared at it for a long time. Then he kissed the top of his son's head and whispered, "Let's go bring her home." The road stretched endlessly beneath the headlights, rain streaming down in sheets. Adrian's hands gripped the steering wheel, his heart pounding with urgency. He drove through dark winding roads toward the small town Evelyn once mentioned, the only place she might have gone. Her rented house was modest, sitting at the end of a gravel path. A faint porch light flickered against the storm. Adrian parked, sat for a moment, listening to the rain and the doubt inside his chest. Then he stepped out into the downpour. Each drop stung against his skin, reminding him of everything he had left unsaid. By the time he reached her porch, he was soaked through, his suit clinging to him like a second skin. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again. Louder. The door creaked open. Evelyn stood there in a sweatshirt, hair tied back, eyes widening in disbelief. "Adrian," she whispered. He was dripping wet, his voice unsteady. "I need to talk to you. You came all the way here." "I had to." Her voice was fragile. "Why now?" Adrian stepped back into the full force of the storm, and then, to her shock, he dropped to his knees right there on her porch. "Adrian," she gasped. "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry," he said over the rain. "I was angry. I was scared. I told myself I didn't need you, but the truth is," his chest heaved, "I thought my heart died with Julia. I thought I had nothing left to give. But you, Evelyn, you woke something in me I thought was gone. Forever." Rain and tears blurred together as he looked up at her. "You are not a replacement. You're not a mistake. You're not here because of guilt or coincidence. You're here because I need you. I choose you." Evelyn's hand covered her mouth as her knees buckled. She stepped out into the storm, letting it drench her too. "I don't deserve that," she whispered. "I lied." "No." Adrian stood, voice steady. "You protected your pain the same way I did. But you gave Oliver joy. You gave this cold house warmth. You gave me hope." Her breath trembled. The fight in her eyes melted. "I was so afraid to feel this," she admitted. "So was I," he whispered, and then she stepped forward, throwing her arms around him, clinging as though she'd never let go again. He held her just as fiercely. The storm raged on, but they no longer noticed. "See," a small voice piped up, They broke apart, startled. Oliver stood at the bottom of the steps, hood up, clutching his stuffed bear. "I told you she'd come back," he said with all the confidence of a child. "Evelyn," gasped Oliver. Adrian laughed through the lump in his throat. "I told him he could come. He wanted to see you." Oliver climbed the steps and hugged them both, his little arms wrapping around as far as they could reach. "This is home now," he declared matter-of-factly. Evelyn looked at him, then at Adrian, and for the first time in a very long time, she wasn't afraid to believe in a future. 6 months later, the Stone estate felt transformed, not by renovations, but by something far greater: laughter, warmth, life. Sunlight spilled across the tall windows. Catching fresh flowers, Evelyn insisted on putting in nearly every room. The once quiet halls now echoed with Oliver's giggles, Evelyn's gentle voice, and Adrian's deep, rare laughter that came easier these days. Adrian had never imagined peace could look like this. Not grand gestures or headline-making moments, but ordinary ones wrapped in joy. In the renovated guest house at the back of the property, Evelyn hosted her art classes twice a week. Children from local shelters came with worn shoes and tired eyes. Leaving with smudged fingers and sketchbooks full of dreams, she knelt beside them, guiding patiently, never rushing, her blonde hair loose and her hands covered in charcoal dust. Adrian often found himself lingering outside the glass door, watching quietly as she lit up the room, and in those moments, he knew this was exactly who she was meant to be. One Tuesday morning, Evelyn stirred awake to the smell of something sweet drifting through the halls. Butter, cinnamon, syrup. She blinked sleepily, pulled one of Adrian's oversized shirts over her shoulders, and padded barefoot toward the kitchen. She stopped at the doorway, smiling. Adrian stood at the stove in sweatpants and a t-shirt, concentrating as though he were preparing a billion-dollar deal. Beside him, Oliver balanced on a stool, whisk in hand, face dusted with flour. "Careful," Adrian warned. "That's not how you whisk." "It is now." Oliver laughed, splattering batter onto the counter. Evelyn folded her arms, leaning against the frame. "This is a crime scene." Adrian glanced over his shoulder, grinning. "Morning. We're making pancakes," Oliver announced proudly. "I can see that," she chuckled, walking over. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," Adrian said as he flipped another pancake onto the stack. "Just a Tuesday." Evelyn arched a brow. "You skip work?" "You, Mr. Stone," he shrugged. "Some meetings can wait. You don't get many Tuesdays like this." Her chest softened. She kissed the top of Oliver's head, then reached for plates. As she passed Adrian, she murmured playfully, "You know, the first meal I ever cooked here was the worst scrambled eggs in history." He chuckled, "And I ate every bite." "Why?" she teased. "Because," he said gently, more serious, "now, it was the first time this house felt warm again." Her teasing smile faltered into something tender. Without another word, she stepped behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist and resting her cheek against his back. He covered her hands with his own. Later, the three of them sat at the table with a tower of pancakes between them, syrup dripping down the sides. Oliver told silly stories, Evelyn fed him extra strawberries, and Adrian just watched grateful. Quiet. Outside, the sky was clear and bright. Inside, the home he thought he had lost had finally returned, and tucked away in a bank vault sat a document Adrian had signed months earlier, a trust fund ensuring Caleb's medical care for life. Evelyn never asked. She might never know unless he told her. Some love, Adrian believed, didn't need to be spoken. Some love was made of pancakes and paintbrushes. Tuesday mornings and second chances. The camera would have pulled back here if this were a film, a kitchen bathed in sunlight. Adrian, Evelyn, and Oliver gathered around the table, laughter spilling across the walls. A home reborn. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes with a child's drawing taped to a refrigerator, with an ordinary Tuesday breakfast, with a chance you never thought you deserved, but were given anyway. And in those simple, quiet moments, a house that once stood silent finally found its voice again through laughter, healing, and love that appeared when no one was looking for it.